guys, you're listening to This Is Sport. I'm your host, Jake Hamilton, and today our guest joining us over in Sydney. He's a professional basketballer in the NBL, and he's a point guard for Sydney Kings. Jason Cadee, thanks for joining us, mate.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. So to start off with a bit of a backstory for everyone watching and listening, Jason, you were born and raised in Sydney with a mum and dad who were professional basketballers themselves, and also former Olympians too, representing Australia in the 70s and 80s. Were they actually the ones to introduce you into the sport, or was it something that you grew an interest for on your own?
They were, but it was actually more just people I knew, friends when I was younger playing. I was a bit of a kid who loved all kinds of sports, and I was a bit of an athlete, could do a bit of everything and enjoyed most of it. So for me, it was actually, I think I started playing soccer, and then one day my friends were playing basketball and I wanted to play with them, and then from that day on I loved it.
Awesome, man. Good stuff. And what age do you truly believe you're going to make it as a professional?
Tough one. I guess I always loved it as a junior, and I guess it was something I always excelled at, especially when I was a top age kid going through the representative stuff. But I guess it got to probably about top age 16s when I went to my first nationals, and then I rolled into a bottom age 18s and started really playing well. And I think I started to realize then that I was going to be a chance to make it, and I knew that's what I wanted.
It's tough in all sports to make it to that professional level, and it's a huge milestone to reach. So it's a great achievement to have accomplished, man. Congratulations for that.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So you've moved around a few times in your career, from Gold Coast when you played for Gold Coast Blaze, Adelaide when you played with the 36ers, and then back in Sydney in 2014. Did it feel good coming home to Sydney?
Yeah, it did. And I had the option to come to Sydney straight out of the AIS, but I actually think that I made the right decision in going somewhere else and being out of Sydney. And I got to go to the Gold Coast and be under Joey Wright. And they had some guys up there like Adam Gibson, James Harvey, and names that I knew I could learn from. And I think that was big for me, being able to get out of not being in Sydney, go find myself and live away from Sydney and do something else. And when I came back to Sydney, it just felt like the right timing, and I was excited to be home and be around my friends and family. And I guess I was excited I wasn't ready for what I got in terms of just you hear from people you haven't heard from years and things like that. But I was old enough to be able to deal with things like that, and it just felt like the right time to be home.
Yeah, so it fit in well in terms of timing and things like that for your career.
Yeah, 100%. And it just all seemed to fit in nicely. And when it came up, Damien Cotter was a coach here who I'd been around as a junior, and I knew he would be on me every day, and I just thought that was a perfect situation to come into coming back.
Good stuff, man. So he can sort of push you to be the best that you can be, type thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So everyone dreams of representing the national team. They want to achieve that national step. So you achieved that on your debut in 2012. How did you feel representing Australia for the first time?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I was in the junior. I still remember that being away. We're in France with the junior Australian team, the under-19s, and Marty Clark was the head coach of that end of our AIS program. And I remember he pulled a couple of us into a room and said, "You've been selected in the Boomers camp when we get home."
Wow!
And I remember I was only new to the AIS, and I'd only been there for about 4 months or 3 months, and so it'd been a pretty whirlwind couple of months. And I just remember sitting there just going, "That's crazy!" Like, I was like, "How do I get to go to that?" And I remember going to my first camp and actually doing all right. And I guess Brett Brown was the head coach at the time, and
yeah,
I remember just loving every moment of it. And it was tough, but you got to enjoy it, and you were playing with a level that just you weren't used to as a kid. And I just remember that whole experience, and then being able to play my first couple of games were overseas, and then I got to play in the home series as well as an 18-year-old, which was just something else.
It would have been unreal. Making it in professional sports, obviously, as we said before, is extremely tough. And to make it like yourself is a huge milestone. If you weren't a professional basketballer, though, if basketball wasn't in the picture, what would you like to be doing?
I get asked this question every time, and I never know the real answer to it. I struggle to find myself not being involved in basketball for the simple reason of, since I was a kid, my dad was the CEO of the Razorbacks. I've been around it since I could walk.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones, like, people say, "Oh yeah, basketball's my life," but like legitimately, basketball is my life. Like my whole family, like even my uncles, my cousins, they've all played in the NBL or whatever it is. We go down to Christmas and we legitimately talk sport, but basketball is talked about a lot. Like I don't think I would know. I don't think I'd be who I am without basketball, just in the simple reason that I've just grown up around it. But if I wasn't playing, I honestly just think I'd be coaching or doing something to do with kids. I love the sport, and it's just what I know. It's just who I am, and it's hard to remove basketball out of the picture when I've been around it so long.
Yeah, so it's formed who you are today.
I think so. A big part of me is definitely basketball, and I think I've made a lot of friends, and I've met a lot of good people that way too. So I think a lot has been formed around the sport of basketball for me.
Yeah, and having two parents as well who are ex-professionals themselves, that obviously starts off the inspiration.
Yeah, 100%. They just understand it from the get-go. Like, you go to mum and dad, there's not much they haven't seen in their life that I deal with. So it's a pretty good outlet to have when you're going through something, whether it's yourself or with the team or with the organisation, and dad just can sit there and say, well, yeah, I've seen this before. Like, this is not how it works. It's definitely, and even me, myself, I've seen a lot of it as a kid, being around the Razorbacks. I'd see things happen every day. I'd go to training as much as I could. So you get an idea for how it all works.
Yeah, and they'll understand the sacrifices you have to make to become a professional as well. So as you said already, they know that. They've lived it themselves, so they can understand the commitments you're making in order to keep your career going in the first place, to even get it started. So they understand all that.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've achieved a lot already in your career, and you were named in the tournament's All-Star 5 in the Australian Stankovic Cup, and you also helped the Boomers win gold last year in the Asia Cup. But what's a goal of yours that you'd like to achieve in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
I think just solidifying my spot in the NBL, and I think I've started to do it, but it's a hard league. There's 3 imports now, and the talent is through the roof. And I think I've really started to cement the solid name amongst the NBL, and somebody who plays hard and gets stuff done. But I think now that I'm in that Australian squad, and with how that's opened up in avenues with some of the big dogs not being able to play, I think just being in that squad and trying to find a little spot that maybe when those guys do come back, I fit in nicely with them. And I think I'm a guy that is able to play in different situations because I'm able to score the ball and also lead teams. So I think for me, just being around that Australian team as much as I can and trying to jag a spot at a World Championships or an Olympics would be something that, as a kid, you only dream of.
Exactly. Now, there's 8 games remaining for the Kings this season. How are you feeling about the upcoming fixtures?
Yeah, look, it's obviously it's not been hidden. It's been a struggle. This year's been tough. There was a lot of promise, and some things haven't gone our way. And look, there's a lot of excuses you could use, and just bottom line is that we just haven't been up to scratch. And I think there's been a whole host of things that not everyone sees day to day that just haven't gone right for us, and it makes it hard when this league's only got 8 teams who have been together. A majority of those teams every year, year in, year out.
Yeah,
you got to be up every night, or it just won't happen. And I think we've showed that we are a team that hasn't been together long. We've had a few changes. We've got a lot of rookies on our roster, and I think that's showed up. But I think where we are right now, we sit in a position where hopefully a guy like Kevin Lish could be back this week, and I feel like it might sound crazy and people might not get it, but I actually feel like we've got a group now that obviously you never keep everyone together, but we're in a position where if we can keep a majority of us together, I feel like a lot of progress will be made the next 8 games. And then if we all happen to come back next year and we add a few pieces that really fit our roster, I feel like we could be very, very good for next year. And that can come off the back of what we do in the next 8 games. So, look, it might sound ridiculous because we're last, but I think we're not far off being very, very good. And I think with the core group we have, if we can just build around that and keep it together, I think we could be a very good team come next year.
Ain't no debate with suicide. Too deep when I ride. Ruby getting out for the